From the kitchen of the cabin, it's the 5 Games for Doomsday review. A War of Whispers. The games you love are not the games you played. The human memory is wonderful like that. All of the frustrations, the dicky tummy, the other person's annoying habit of tapping their teeth, the time taken between turns, the aching bladder. All of these things are smoothed away by memory, and you are left with that flawless experience, that smooth recollection. Memory knocks the edges off life and leaves it beautifully shaped into something that you can gaze at, and that feeling you get when you pull open that drawer of memory. It isn't excitement or glee. Happy memories don't work like that. It's a glow that radiates from the stomach and out through your body, into that space where your fingernails slice the air. It is warmth and it's comfort. It's fulfillment. It doesn't happen that often though. Most of life is quotidian. Most of life is schlepping through the wind and washing off its stink. Most of life is connective tissue that links together those magnesium flashes of fulfillment. And there are just enough of them, for most people, to power you through the workaday in search of that next warm patch of fulfillment. Then there are the promises. The things that attempt brilliance and fall short. Things that you wish were just a little better. And they're all the more frustrating for that. They start the race brightly, but soon are sprawled all over the brick-red polyurethane. A War of Whispers uses brevity in its attempt at brilliance, and it's its brevity that robs it of any chance of ever getting there. In A War of Whispers, players adopt the roles of hidden societies that wheedle and manipulate empires that are seeking to dominate the map. Players place advisors into the councils of these empires, which results in more units being placed onto the board, or attacks being instigated, or cards being drawn that break the game in certain ways. All of this is done to position the nation that the player favours into controlling more cities on the board and yielding them more points. At the beginning of the game, players randomly arrange loyalty tokens face down onto their player mats that dictate your loyalties and give points at the end of the game. Points range from 4 to -1, and all spaces must be covered, so it's incumbent upon you to promote and undermine, and all of this in secret. At the end of the round, you're able to swap loyalties of 2 factions, but then these will be flipped and your intentions made known to the rest of the table. Then after 4, all too short rounds, points for controlled cities are totalled, and the player with the most wins. God, this game should be better. It has so much going for it. The central idea is great, the rules are elegant and easy to grasp, turns clip by and there's never any sense that you are left waiting. But when all of these vibrant ingredients are mixed together, they come out tasting like gruel. Firstly, the game is too short. And this is not simply a time thing. It feels like it ends just as you get started. There is never any feeling that you have time to build a cohesive plan. Turns blur into one another, and none of them seem to have any import. The depth of gameplay here is like a puddle. You want to submerge yourself into the play of a game, and here I feel like I barely get my ankles wet. Any work of art should be exactly as short as it needs to be, but here brevity seems to have been the major criteria in design, and the game suffers as a result. In a landscape of bulky, unwieldy and over-complex Eurogames that last far too long, this game has taken the opposite tack, but it's failed to deliver anything satisfying. I want to take a short detour here to talk about the production of this game. I don't tend to talk about production as it's the most vacuous point of criticism in this hobby, unless it interferes or elevates gameplay in some way. Here, the production is a hindrance to the smooth playing of the game. In a desire to make the rulebook concise, oodles of rules and exceptions have been omitted, and for such a simple game, there is far too much resorting to online FAQs and @mentions of the designer to get the answers that should be at your fingertips. Then there's the graphic design, with some elements being far too dark and some colours being far too similar. It's just a pain in the arse. Dark and gritty is fine, but not to the detriment of usability. There was just not enough thought in the production, and another pass at it would have made vast improvements. It is no doubt a beautiful game, but it's also an impractical one. The game promises interaction, but it fails to deliver it. The battles are bland and there is no real need to divine the intention of your fellow players, and little enough agency to be able to counteract it. Actions are of so little import that you are forced to focus on yourself and not to the limiting of others, and there should be a greater split in these two motivations. This is also a game that needs repeated plays to be able to leverage the scant strategies, but doesn't offer enough to ignite the desire in you to open the box repeatedly. That's not to say the game is a disaster. It functions perfectly well, and I suppose I enjoyed playing it to a degree, but there was no excitement and no feeling of warmth afterwards. The fact is that fine simply isn't fine. I want fulfillment in everything I do, and while I know that's an absurd possibility, life is built on absurd aspirations. And unfortunately, A War of Whispers fails to meet any of them. Thank you for listening, and you can support this show by going to patreon.com/5G4D.